I'm going to go over some of the basic ideas in operant conditioning because these can be a little tricky sometimes. And I'm going to use some slightly different terminology than the book uses. First idea to mention is what's called positive reinforcement. This is the easiest of the ideas in operant conditioning. This is what most people think of just as a reward. You do a behavior and you receive something pleasant, some kind of pleasant stimulus. So if you've got an elderly neighbor and you cut her grass and she gives you a plate of cookies, you've been positively reinforced. You're going to be more likely to repeat that behavior of cutting her grass again in the future. Another example, if you buy a scratch-off lottery ticket and you win $50, your behavior of buying that ticket has been positively reinforced. You're going to be more likely to repeat that behavior of buying a ticket again in the future because you received something pleasant after you did that behavior. Now the book points out that what's pleasant for one person may not be pleasant for another person, and the book uses the example of a child in school who's acting up and gets yelled at by a teacher. Well, for the child, that yelling may be perceived as pleasant because it's attention. But the idea is simply that if you do a behavior and you receive something pleasant, you're going to be more likely to repeat that behavior again in the future. Now the next idea is one of the most misunderstood ideas in psychology, and that's the concept of negative reinforcement. There's two ways that negative reinforcement works. One is when you do a behavior and some kind of unpleasant stimulus is removed. The book uses the term aversive stimulus. That just means unpleasant. So for example, if you've got poison ivy and your hand itches and you put some hydrocortisone cream on it, that itch will go away. The itch is the unpleasant thing that's been removed, so your behavior of using the lotion has been negatively reinforced. You're going to be more likely to use the lotion again in the future. If you've got a headache, that's an unpleasant stimulus. You take a Tylenol, the headache goes away. Your behavior of taking the Tylenol has been negatively reinforced. You're going to be more likely to repeat that behavior, take Tylenol again in the future. You're outside and there's a bright sunlight. You put sunglasses on. The unpleasant bright light is removed. You're going to be more likely to wear sunglasses again in the future. You've got an unpleasant odor on your body. You take a shower. The unpleasant odor goes away, so you're going to be more likely to shower again in the future. So whenever you do a behavior and something unpleasant is removed or goes away, you're going to be more likely to repeat that behavior again in the future. Now, another type of negative reinforcement is when some kind of unpleasant stimulus is avoided. Two good examples are using bug spray and using sunscreen. You use bug spray and you avoid getting bitten by bugs. So in the future, you're going to use bug spray again because you've learned from your past experience that when you use this, you avoid bug bites. Same thing with sunscreen. You use sunscreen, you avoid the sunburn, so you're more likely to use that sunscreen, do that behavior again in the future. You're baking. You use oven mitts because you avoid getting your hands burned. You drive the speed limit, or at least near the speed limit, because you avoid getting a ticket. So all these behaviors are negatively reinforced. You're more likely to repeat the behaviors again in the future because by doing the behaviors, you've avoided unpleasant things. Then a couple of types of punishment, what the book calls punishment by application. This is when you do a behavior, or a person does a behavior, and they receive some kind of unpleasant stimulus. So the classic example is a child misbehaves and the parent spanks the child. That child has been punished by application. They've received the unpleasant stimulus of being spanked. If you're in a class and a student asks a question and the instructor says, well, that's a stupid question, and insults the student, that student is going to be less likely to ask a question again. They've been punished by application. They did the behavior of asking a question and they received an unpleasant stimulus, an insult. Punishment by removal is when a person does a behavior and a pleasant stimulus is removed or taken away from them. Some of you may have had or may have courses where professors take points away if you miss class. That's punishment by removal. You do the behavior of missing class and the pleasant stimulus of points is taken away from you. If you stay out later than your parents want you to, or when you were in high school at least. They may have taken your car privileges away or taken your phone away. All right? They were using punishment by removal. They were trying to reduce the likelihood that you would stay out late again in the future. So in summary, both positive and negative reinforcement increase the likelihood that you'll repeat that behavior again in the future. And punishment by application and punishment by removal both decrease the likelihood that you'll repeat that behavior again in the future. As I say, I'm using some slightly different terminology than the book uses here, but I hope this makes sense and helps you understand the section in the book on this.